Happy New Year! My name is Jaina Alexander.
Hey everyone, my name is April Sigman-Marx, and together we decided to start Thumbprint Studios in the midst of a pandemic.
Because we already started it and we figured we would follow through. Each week, we bring artists from diverse backgrounds to share their experiences with one common theme, connection.
Ooh, and tea. Can't do it without the tea. Yes.
Yeah.
And this week we have Vic Melkonyan, who will be talking with us and hanging out on this holiday hangout. And we're going to be talking about the evolving artistic relationships in the theater and the teacher-student dynamic.
Ooh, fascinating. So Vic is the managing assistant of educational programming at Thumbprint Studios. They are a West Asian artist based in both Sacramento and Long Beach. Through the lens of actor, director, and writer, Victoria actively pursues, uplifts, and creates stories for and by those in other groups. They are an alumnus of California State University, Long Beach, with a BA in theater performance, and have also studied with the City Company. Through both their art and activism, they hope to increase visibility for SWANA and all who are absent from the mainstream in various performance and storytelling mediums. They are very excited by the awakenings happening currently between the masses and hope to aid in bringing a sense of revolution and radicalization to the spaces they occupy. So welcome, Vic Melkonyan.
Hey y'all, Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Hey.
So I've known Vic for a little while now. I met Vic at Cal State Long Beach when Vic was an undergrad and I was in grad school. And Vic was in a play that I wrote. And originally I wrote a part that was in the chorus and then pulled them aside and went, hey, can you, I think I'm going to write this other character. I don't know what it's going to be, but could you do that part for me? And it ended up turning into this really huge part. And Vic took it in stride and really ran with it. And where did I introduce Vic to you, Jaina?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, when we were initially putting the Emerging Artist program together, Vic was actually the first person that you were like, hey, I know this human. They're fantastic. We should see if they're interested. So that's sort of how I was introduced to Vic, is like, oh, here, this is the first person that I thought of. We should have them come in.
And of course, Vic, you didn't let us down. Like you were exactly as amazing as I amped you up to be. So
yeah, you were definitely amped up, and I was like, well, we'll see. And then it was like, yes, this person, absolutely. Yeah. So since it's New Year's, what are your hopes for 2021?
Ooh. There's a lot, honestly. Just personally, I'm really hoping to get a firmer grasp on joy in 2021 and to be able to like take a moment when something ugly happens and just sit and, you know, sit in whatever that is and let that move through me and then be able to like laugh in the next moment. I think that's something that I've had a really hard time with this year because I am a human being who, for better or for worse, I am very susceptible to energy. I am a very emotional human, the only emotional human in my household, me. And so when I'm feeling all these big feelings and I don't have other humans around me to like sit in that with me, it can be very difficult because I take it on and I'm like just stuck in this thing and I just can't seem to move through it. And so it's very hard for me to navigate that by myself because I got so used to being around my theater family, my chosen family. And the way that we move through things is very different because we move through it with storytelling, with expressing ourselves, whatever it is, with crying very loudly for 4 hours. I don't know, to each their own. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing for me in 2021. And also just giving myself more permission to be creative. Because, you know, I'll pat myself on the back and say that I did a lot in 2020. For better or for worse, like I was able to do the things that I wanted to do, albeit on Zoom. But I got to be creative, and that's so important to me, because I wasn't able to do that for so long, for the first 18 or so years of my life. It wasn't until I went to college and it was like I'm studying theater that I was able to step into myself. And that's everything.
Well, I think those are excellent hopes for 2021.
Yeah. Excellent hopes. And hopefully we can all be in the same space again together soon, so that we can all be there to, lean on one another and to storytell together and to have space to do things like shatter. And I know that's something that I've heard many people, many theater folks talking about in the last week. Yeah. So, and our next question is one we ask everybody. What are you currently obsessed with?
I was prepared for this one. I have two. One of the things I have with me, because this is my comfort item, this is Grogu. He is the little child from the Mandalorian in the Star Wars universe. I'm a human who needs like contact. Like I just need to be in contact with other humans. I need hugs. I need like pats on the head, whatever it is. I love that. I need that. But I don't get that in the current situation that I'm in, because my family is not like that. I'm the only one that's like that. So this is my cuddle bug, whatever we want to call him. He is everything to me, and he genuinely like comforts me when I need it. I'm a child, as you can see, and I'm proud of it. But yeah, I love my little Grogu. And my other obsession would be it's this TV series called Survivor. I don't know if y'all have heard of it or watched it, but my family and I got into it recently. Basically, it's 20 or so people at a time getting stranded on an island, and they're competing for $1 million. And you have to outlast, outwit, and outplay. And it's thoroughly entertaining for various reasons. I love watching humans being humans, and that show is just humans at their very heightened, because they're dealing with all these intense things and they don't have the basic needs, as in like food, shelter, water, things like that. And it's just like raw human experience, but for $1 million, so dramatized. But it's great. It's what I needed in this year to watch and just be able to like lose myself in the experience that they were having on these islands.
You saying that makes me feel incredibly old. And I have a feeling that April is feeling the same exact way right now, because when Survivor came out, it was very, very, very popular. And I was middle school, high school, something like that. It was a minute ago.
I actually just today learned that Survivor was still a thing. And I was like, wait, what? That's still on? Isn't that like 20 years old?
It's crazy. They're like 40 seasons deep, I think.
Oh my gosh.
I just started from the top, because I had watched a few of the later seasons, but I just started from the top. And so I'm looking at these people in like 2000, and I'm thinking like, wow, I was like 3 years old. Like,
good Lord.
Yeah, like in 2000. Well, how old was I? Well,
but it's great. I love it. And
is the first season with the guy who won't put clothes
naked
on?
Yeah, Richard.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a few seasons where there's like a few people who are very comfortable being naked, and it was really interesting to take in the others' reactions.
That first season with him was very like, everyone was talking about it. It was like a hugely controversial thing. People were like, oh, he refuses to put clothes on. Like it was like a big deal. So
that show it's crazy. Hearing them speak about things like homosexuality when there's like a gay person in the season, the way they like speak about the person, they're like, yeah, the homosexual one. And I'm just like, the homosexual one? Great.
Yeah. I can't say that much of it has aged particularly well. So be prepared for that as you move along.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things going on in there, but it's pretty entertaining.
Mm-hmm. So Vic, tell us about your journey. What has brought you to where you're at today?
My journey. So my theater journey is pretty simple. I was not the theater brat that did it from birth to now. I saw a play when I was 5 in kindergarten. And I didn't know what I was seeing. I was looking at these people on stage, and this girl was in like a rag doll costume. And I remember specifically turning to my teacher and being like, well, what is this? Like, what are they doing? And she was like, well, they're acting. And I was like, oh, like, I want to do that. Can I do that? Just being very like that 5-year-old that's just like very definitive about what they're saying. Like, I want to do that. But as chance would have it, I didn't have the opportunity to do theater until I went away to college. And I went to this cute little city called Long Beach, which I didn't even know existed until I clicked on the drop-down menu of the CSU application and was like, Long Beach, where is that? And I hadn't even like toured the campus or anything, but that's where I chose to go because of financial aid, because poor, America, fun stuff. And so really my first experiences with theater was studying it as an 18-year-old human and being in these classes and studying Uta Hagen and Meisner and being around all these people that had such varying experiences with theater. It was really interesting. I think I took that first year and I really just observed what was happening around me because I was like, well, I don't know what this thing is. I know that I want to do it. I know that for whatever reason, I feel like I'm meant to do it, but I don't know what this is. So fast forward 4 years, I graduated. And I'm really fucking proud of what I did. As someone who had no experience and had no idea what this thing was, I stepped into that building and I will use others' words, I took over. And I did what I needed to do. I got the training. I did what I wanted to do. I headlined several projects. I had various titles within the department, which I didn't think were special, but people, for whatever reason, that put me in a certain position within the department, and I became the person who took care of everyone else, which is something that's very natural for me. I'm the mama bear. I will take care of you, whatever it is, I got you. So when I became that person for the student body, it was very familiar. And I was able to figure out what that was for me and what that felt like and how I could use those natural elements of my character within my art too, which is how I ended up doing activism through art. And I didn't even know I was doing it at the time. It was just what was natural to me. If I was taking on a project, there had to be a purpose, there had to be a gift, there had to be an educational aspect, something. And so I think all those things that happened and that aligned somehow in the way that they did, like they very much shaped who I am. Because I'm naturally that person that I just care about the world. Like I just care about human beings, human experience. And anyone who knows me know that I operate in a very specific way. And that's in service of various groups, whether they align with me or not. So yeah, that's been my journey. I graduated a year and a half ago. I don't know time. And it's been crazy. I don't know. I'm proud of how far I've come. I don't regret any of it. I don't regret any of the ugly at all. The good, bad, and the ugly. And I had a lot of ugly. But I think that I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason. And I think that all the experiences that I had during my undergrad experience, all the good ones, all the bad ones, all the ugly ones, they shaped me to be who I am today, and I'm proud of that human being.
As you should be, which is exactly why here at Thumbprint, your role has evolved from one of our mentees to now being a staff member, a faculty member for teens. How has this transition been for you? Or has it been, I mean, maybe muddled because of the whole virtual aspect that we're living in?
Mm-hmm. Well, the virtual aspect is always weird.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever get quite used to speaking to humans, but not being able to be in the room with them. That's something that I think will always just be off to me. But as far as transitioning from one thing to another in Thumbprint, that felt so natural, it was kind of ridiculous. But in its own magical way, that's kind of what happens to me in situations like this. I tend to, for whatever reason, be given a very large amount of trust by human beings. Whether or not I should be, I don't know. I'll be honest. But people tend to trust me. And I do all that I can to be worthy of that trust because I care about humans and I want to be in service and do it well. And I don't know. I love Thumbprint. I love y'all. It's when I graduated, I was worried because I was like, you know, I had 4 years to build myself up in my undergrad and reveal myself to these humans. You don't get that outside in the professional world. You don't get 4 years to build yourself up and be like, look how great I am, hire me. That doesn't happen. So when Thumbprint came along, it was just one of those fated things where I was like, well, of course this is how it would happen. Like, how else would it happen to me? I don't know what it is, but I meet very special humans and they tend to stay in my life. And we tend to gift each other things along the way, and I don't take that for granted. But yeah, I love y'all.
Well, we love you.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that. Well, I don't know why people trust me or they just trust me. And I feel like you have always, without needing to be asked, have jumped in and been one of those people who like takes responsibility in building and whatever needs to be done. You're like, I see something that needs to be done, I go and do it. And I don't worry about who gets credit or who is supposed to be doing what. There's a thing that needs to be done, so I do it. And so I feel like you always build that trust. And that's why I think people, maybe it feels to you because it feels so natural that people want to give you that trust. But I think almost immediately you're constantly looking for how to help or what needs to be done and how to serve. And that in and of itself is very rare. And I think that builds so much trust. So thank you for being you and for being a part of Thumbprint because we love having you on the team. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so what are some of the advantages and challenges that you face when you're dealing with changing artistic relationships and those dynamics? Because in theater, you could be a teacher-student dynamic one day, and then the next day, your colleagues. Or you could be in a position where you're hiring your teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the advantages and challenges you faced with that?
There's a lot. So much. I think, hold on, my voice is going. I think for me, one thing that's very personal to me is that when I see a problem, I question it. And authority figures don't like that, especially if they happen to be cis white males. And there's a lot of those in theater. But I don't know how to turn that part of myself off. Like, I just don't, part of me doesn't care because I'm like, if you're doing something wrong, I'm going to point it out. Like, I'm sorry, you're hurting people, you're not serving people. Like, I'm going to point that out. But part of me is like, well, why? Like, part of me just doesn't understand when people are unable to hear how they could be better, to hear like constructive criticism. I don't know how else to frame it, but it's like, especially in theater, especially when we're supposed to be these like self-actualized human beings that are so in tune with their own emotions and energies and yada yada yada, and everything else that we say to ourselves to inflate our own ego at the end of the day. I just don't understand when I hit those walls with people. I'm like, well, why don't you want to see this? Like, what is stopping you from being able to sit down with someone and being like, oh, so what we're doing right now, that's not working, is it? This isn't serving this group of people, and we need to serve this group of people because they don't get served often, because they're underrepresented or marginalized or whatever it is. And when I would bring those things up, and I would bring them up often, that would always, there was a point where it would just get shut down because they weren't willing to listen and be like, oh, like, I was wrong. And the thing is, it's not about being wrong. Like, it has nothing to do with you. It's not personal. Like, whether we're talking about white supremacy or any sort of system in place that is meant to bring a group of humans down, like, these are all things that we participate in. Whether you're part of that group or not, you participate in it because we've been conditioned to. It exists in our vessels, and so we have to do the work in order to purge that out. We have to be able to identify that and say, hey, like, that's, oh, I did something there that was hurtful or exclusive. I can fix that. I can make sure that that group is represented. I can make sure that I'm taking care of that group just a little more. I can make sure that I'm thinking about that group when I'm thinking about diversity or inclusion or equity or whatever it is. So when it comes to like relationships and things, for me, it's the hardest thing, I think, is because I'm the type of person that I will tell you if you're doing something that isn't okay. And it's hard for, I think, especially theater folks to hear that, because we got a lot of ego, you know? And if you're not honest about that, you're not going to be able to hear these things. And so for me as a student, when I would bring these things up, that get shut down, or I'd get attacked, or they would try to punish me in some way, yada, 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 whatever they wanted to do. It was just so frustrating because there's no give in that dynamic. In teacher-student, when the teacher is like, I am right, you are wrong. I am teacher, you are student. Therefore, that's all that can be. There's no give in that. And I don't think that's okay, because we're human beings. Like, you as teacher should not feel like you are any greater than the student. I don't care what the age difference is. I don't care what the experience difference is. Like, and I that's something that I will, like, no one can contest that for me. I'm like, there is no, like, you are two human beings, so treat each other as human beings. Like, just that teacher-student relationship is so, there's a fine line. And in theater, that fine line gets moved around quite a bit. They play with it a lot. It's kind of like tug of war. Like, there's a lot of pushing and pulling. And because in theater, we inherently get pretty close with our professors and higher ups and yada, 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 it gets tricky because people get comfortable. And when someone crosses a line, most of the time, the person that gets punished is the student, especially in these huge institutions where, say, a teacher might need to be punished for something they have said or done. That usually doesn't happen because the due process is not in favor of the student at all. Like, it's just, it just doesn't, there's no give. And I just feel like, especially in theater, if people were just more open to hearing criticism and just knowing that it's not personal, like even in the conversations that are happening right now, because all these theater institutions, like a few months ago, were like, oh, well, we stand with Black lives. And they all put out these cute little statements. And we're like, yeah, we're for diversity, inclusion, and we stand with the Black Lives Matter movement. But it's like, do you? Because when I look at your faculty, when I look at your board, when I look at the shows that you put on, when I look at the way in which that you take advantage of your students of color, that those two things do not correlate one bit. And that pisses me off to such a T. If we're going to do the work, I say we actually do the work, because putting out statements means nothing. Going to whatever trainings there are happening, that means absolutely nothing. A training will not make you anti-racist. A training will not make you more aware of your place in the world. Like that comes first from your own, like, you have to be honest with yourself and who you are and the things that you have done, whether you meant to or not. And then you have to work to mend those relationships with your students. Because those are the people that you hurt first. Like that's the first relationship. And when we come into these schools at 18, 19 years old, we're children. Like, we're so impressionable, and we're given this work on a silver platter, right? And we're told, like, you can have the world. Here it is, right here. This is for you. But when we're not treated well, when we're taken advantage of, like that harms the way we view the world, and we think that that's all we're gonna get. We think that that's all there is for us in the theater world, and that's just, it's not okay. We deserve more.
Is that dynamic something that's influenced your desire to teach?
Yeah. I think in observing the relationships that I have had with professors, the ups and the downs with those relationships, the falling in and out of those things, and the way that people have received myself, my energy, and the way that I move through the world, and the way that I'm able to speak on certain things. I just think that as a teacher, like, you have to meet your students at their playing level. You have to recognize that their worldly experiences, like, that's going to come into the room. As much as you might want to say, leave your worldly whatever is at the door, because theater people like to say that, but sometimes that's not possible. Because sometimes you're of several marginalized identities and things happen, and you can't just leave that out the door, because that's your daily experience. And that's going to influence yourself in the work. That's going to influence yourself as an artist. And there has to be room for that. And in a lot of theater institutions, in a lot of those classrooms, there's no room for that. Not unless they want you to play your trauma. Then there'll be room, but only on their terms. And that's where it gets really ugly. And so as a teacher, I think that I want my students to understand that they have the power. It isn't anyone else. It isn't any theater director, whoever, dean, teacher, whatever it is. Like, they have the power to own their work and who they are. And they have the power to say yes or no to whatever experience that person may want them to have. Be it in a production, be it in a classroom, whatever it is. And I want them to find that power and to be able to use that at any given moment's notice. I don't want them to become yes men and to be able to just own who they are and use their experiences as they want to, not on the terms of any main stage performance or yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I want to meet my students on a level playing field, and I want to learn as much from them as they learn from me, because I know inevitably I'm going to be learning a lot from them.
Yeah.
For sure.
So why specifically did you choose to teach a monologue class for teens?
Monologues are one of those things where, at least in my experience, it was sort of expected that you knew what that entity was and that you knew what to do with it. And that's not always the case. I stepped into that world, and suddenly there were these things that I was supposed to know, but I didn't know what they were. Didn't know how they functioned. I didn't know what a monologue was, what I was supposed to do with that, how I was supposed to work with it. And it's one of the first things you'll encounter in theater training. So it's just vital. And I think in speaking to incoming students at Cal State Long Beach, one of the things that I always noticed was that they were terrified of the audition room. Absolutely terrified. They're like, well, what is it going to look like when I get in there? Like, who's going to be sitting there? Who's going to be watching me? Like, what do I do? Where do I stand? What do I say? And it's like all these questions that could easily be answered in a classroom setting, could easily, like, spend 10 minutes talking about it and they'll feel like 30% more comfortable at least. And so it was one of those things where I'm like, this shouldn't be this big, scary thing. Like, we're going to have to do this so often. If you're going to be a performer, you're going to have to do this so often. And so every time auditions would come around and I'd be speaking to these students and they'd be so terrified. And so I would just sit with them and I'd like do my best to describe like what the experience is of walking into the room and what that means and the various steps of what that entity is. And even that, I could tell like that helped them because they were able to visualize it and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing when I get in the room. This is what's going to happen. This is where I'm going to stand. This is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say my name. I'm going to name the part that I'm playing. Okay, great. Then I'm going to exit stage left, not stage right. And so it's one of those like foundational things that I think in training gets glossed over a lot because it's expected that you know what that is. And a lot of people don't necessarily know what that entity is, or they do know and they're not quite good at it yet because it's a hard thing to master.
So what advice would you offer teen students who are transitioning from high school into either university or professional setting?
I would say to take the time to be an observer because you will learn so much just simply by observing people doing the thing. Just take the time to be an observer and really soak in the environment that you're in and study it. I think it helps. I think it helps knowing the relationships, the power dynamics, the curriculum, like what it is that you're going to go through, and seeing for yourself what's going to work for you and what isn't, and knowing and accepting the fact that not everything is going to work for you. You might be in a Meisner class with 15 other students, and for 8 of them, it really works. 7 of them doesn't quite work, and that's okay. Do it anyway. Figure it out. Then you can say goodbye to Meisner for the rest of your life if you need to. But it's just, I think, always being in that student mindset, but knowing that as a student that you have power. You can make decisions, you can say yes or no, and anything that isn't working for you or anything that is harmful to you, you can reject. And it has nothing to do with you.
That is excellent advice.
Yeah. Always
So what
important
would you
to
like?
remember.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
So what would you like to leave all of our viewers with today?
I would say that I think it's important going into this year to take a breath and fully acknowledge where we are as a country, as a world, all of the various things going on, where you are personally, whatever that may be. And to allow yourself to sit in that, whatever that may be. And going forward, like you may have all these various expectations about 2021 and whatever that may be, but whatever you're at now, I think is okay. I always say that. I'm like, wherever you are now, even if you're simply existing, that's enough. That is more than enough. We made it this far. We made it out of the hellfire that was 2020. So take a breath and enjoy that as much as you can, because I know that everyone's got their own things going on, but yeah.
Well, I'm really appreciative of that reminder. It gave me a moment to go, okay, yeah, sit back, take a breath, remember, look at your where you're at and acknowledge it, and also to like give yourself credit for it. Of like, it existing may not feel like a win, but it's a win. So like giving yourself that space. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Oh, Vic, you're teaching two teen monologue classes. Can you tell all of our viewers who either are teens or have teens a little bit more info about when and where these are happening so that they can come and join in?
Yes. So I'm teaching a monologue class. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of scary. Um,
But
You're going to be
exciting.
fantastic.
but
Yes.
exciting, yes.
You're
And
gonna
I'm
be
so
amazing.
excited to meet my students and see who ends up showing up to the room. But what I hope for these courses is that my students leave feeling empowered in the work and um, really sure of their ability and their what that unique thing that they bring. Because I always say that like you can't mold yourself to fit the work. That doesn't make any sense because the work isn't this one monolithic entity, even though like in a lot of settings people like to describe it that way, whatever it is. Um, but what you can do is mold the work to fit you, and that is everything as an artist. It's so obvious when an artist walks into a room, even before they begin any sort of monologue, whatever it is going on. Like you can tell as soon as an artist walks into a room that they know who they are and that they own that as an artist. Like it's just so obvious and it's so thrilling to watch. I know it's an unpopular opinion. I love auditioning people and I love watching auditions because it is so thrilling to be able to see people step into their element and to own that, whatever it is. I love that. And so I hope that that's what this class brings you, is to be able to, in these moments when you're like adrenaline pumping, you're like, oh my God, I'm auditioning for this thing. Oh my God, this is so crazy. Oh my God. That you're able to like use that and step into yourself and give the gift of yourself to whoever you're auditioning for, really, because you are the gift walking into the room. That's what that is. It is a privilege for the people sitting behind whatever table they're at to be watching you. And that's the energy that I step into the room with when I audition. And it works. So yeah, please come join me on Wednesday, starting January 20th. It's going to be fun, and I'm so thrilled.
And these are virtual, so anyone from every corner of every city and every country could come and take classes with Vic. And the first one is for ages 13 to 15, and that is at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 to 7 Central, 7 to 8 Eastern. And then the 16 and up class is at 5:15 to 6:15 Pacific, 7:15 to 8:15 Central, and 8:15 to 9:15 Eastern. That week, we also have adult class starting. We've got our musical theater class with Jaina and Chuck, which is going to be super awesome. Very excited for that. And that is on Tuesdays from 4 to 5:30 Pacific time, 5 to 6:30 Mountain, 6 to 7:30 Central, and 7 to 8:30 Eastern. And then script analysis is going to be on Thursdays, and that is taught by myself, which I'm excited about because as a dyslexic person, script analysis was never my favorite class, and I always dreaded it. But this ain't your mama's script analysis. We're going to do a whole bunch of embodiment to make it a bit more exciting and interesting and to like really digest it. And that is on Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 to 7 Central, and 7 to 8 Eastern. So we hope that you will come out and join us for those. And Happy New Year as a like, thank you as a gift to all of you out there who have been a part of our community this year. We are extending our early bird pricing through January 8th. So we have some really great deals going on, and you can jump in and sign up for those classes at a discount, save some moolah. So that is happening. So jump on that before the 8th.
Yes. Our next Thumbprint Reads and Listens, our first one for the year. We're very excited about our year of Thumbprint Reads and Listens because we are doing our Instead of series. So if you're thinking about your production schedules or your, what you're going to teach in your whatever classes, if you're starting to think about those, we have our Instead of series. So if you, this month, if you're interested in looking at Hedda Gabler by Henrik Ibsen, oh my gosh, I cannot speak, apparently. Instead of, we're going to discuss Summer in Goss and Sauce by Maria Irene Fornes. It's a very interesting play. We are very excited about it. And we will be having Anne Garcia Romero, who is one of our board members and is a fantastic director and dramaturg, and former student of Maria Irene Fornes, who will be our guest artist coming to educate us on this play. So it's going to be fabulous. Check out our events page. There will be more for this winter session. And you can check that out at www.thumbprintstudios.org/events. Everything that we have and all of our past events will be posted there for your perusal. So thank you so much, Vic, for joining us. We were very excited to have you as our first of the year. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will see you all next week. Come for the connection.
And stay for the tea.